The Chaser Report is recorded on Gadigal land.
Striving for mediocrity in a world of excellence. This is the Chaser Report.
Hello and welcome to the Chaser Report with Dom and Charles.
Charles, we have a spin-off podcast called Welcome to the Future. People might know. Please subscribe to it if you wish. Where we review essentially the future as we see it, Charles, is of terrifying AI and crappy Bluetooth products.
Yes, definitely.
But I've just been to the real future.
Oh, yeah.
I've just been to Japan for a week, a very enjoyable week of checking out Japan. I fully recommend it to everyone who can get there, as long as you can buy tickets during the one day where there's a sale, which is what I did. Because I looked at the airfares when I got back and hideously expensive. So that's a little taste of the future for you. Yes. $600 million to go on a 10-hour flight. But there are some things there that we don't have in Australia yet, and I'm hoping that we'll get. But I don't know that I'm optimistic.
This is going to be an entire show about the toilet seats, isn't it?
Well, we can start there if you like. Because the toilets are amazing. And there are some of them in Australia, but it's the Toto washlet, Charles.
Oh,
there are
right.
a few variations on it, but the Toto Corporation invented this toilet that, how can I explain it? Well, firstly, you sit down on it and the seat is warm. It warms the seat for you. And I didn't know how much I wanted a warm toilet seat until I experienced one.
Well, I mean, it's been a long tradition, hasn't it? Remember Tom Brown's school days and
Yes,
things like that?
the seat warmer.
Yeah, the seat warmer was the junior kid who had to warm up the seat for the seniors.
Yeah.
As
I mean,
part
that's
of a raising
obviously
tool.
a much better tradition.
Yes.
But if you don't have already access to children to abuse,
Would you say that the warming of the Toto has the same human qualities that a personally warmed up
no,
seat
yeah,
has?
you've got me there. See, I thought the Japanese model was superior. But no one gets humiliated in this model, do they? So that's unfortunate.
Yeah.
Charles, there's a spray. There's a little spray arm that comes out from the back of the toilet underneath you.
I am.
And there's a jet. And there are two modes for the jet. Jet mode one is there's a button that looks like a pair of buttocks. You press that button and a spray of warm liquid comes, and let's be clear on the direction here, comes from the jet up towards you.
Yes.
It's in no way like diarrhea where it's just a stream of other warm liquid going the other direction. No, but this cleans you. It's kind of like a spray bidet.
It's a bidet, yeah.
But it's a fancy pants bidet. You can change the speed and the intensity of the amount and the
and
force.
you're a big fan, aren't you?
It's good stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, look, this is a debate that.
So did you use toilet paper at all when you were over
you
there?
need to at the end,
right,
just to sort of clean up a little bit. But no, very impressive. But there's also a mode I didn't use, Charles, which is lady mode. In which case the jet moves further forward, and there's a little pink button that's on the toilet. So, I mean, it's hard to come back to regular non-warm sprayless toilets.
Yes,
with no computer chips in them at all.
But what if you need to give your balls a bit of a wash?
Well,
could you use
that.
it?
You could maybe use the lady mode, or maybe that is. Maybe I've gotten confused because the two buttocks are just kind of like a number 3 on its side. Maybe it's buttocks or balls. I don't know. It could well be. So anyway, it's very advanced.
What if you're biologically not suitable for that shape of toilet? Like,
that's a very good question. I don't know whether there's sort of physical diversity. But I did see one of the things they have is there are disabled toilets everywhere. And many have this sort of, it's hard to explain. It's kind of like a hand shower spray that could be used for, I think, disabled people to clean themselves. And this was just I've never seen that in Australia anywhere. And this was everywhere in Japan, as were kind of baby change stations, very useful for us. And the most useful invention ever, which I think I've only seen in one Australian public toilet, which is a little chair off the ground where you can stick your baby while you go to the toilet so that they can't escape.
Right.
It's absolutely brilliant. It's like a little mini high chair.
Oh, that
in
is
the toilet cubicle.
Because they've got that for babies in Australia. You know, you've got those, tables that fold down.
No, but they've got those. But I mean, inside the cubicle, if you need to go yourself,
you put
what do
them
you do
on-
with the baby? And they're sitting upright in this tiny, it's kind of like a mini high chair. And I mean, then the baby has to watch you poo. That's the only downside of it. But it doesn't matter. Yeah. So that's one little taste of the future.
Yeah, that's great. Okay.
So that alone is enough reason to book a trip to Japan. This hasn't been paid for by the Japanese Tourist Board, but if anyone does want to pay us to go back and do the podcast for a week in Japan, that would be excellent. Can we pitch that?
Yeah, let's
pitch that.
Let's pitch that.
Anyway, so another excellent thing that they have, it's a weird idea, Charles, but they have convenience stores that are actually convenient. They're on every.
I'm not understanding.
No, so imagine a convenient like a 7-Eleven.
Yeah.
And they're everywhere. So there's probably one across the street from where you are in any part of Tokyo, pretty much.
Yeah.
There's about 10 different chains of convenience store, but the logic of them is so different. Because the first thing, I don't actually understand how this is possible. It's like an alternative universe. They're cheap.
Oh.
I know. You go in there and you get, I don't know, a can of Coke or something, or one of the other Japanese drinks. It's, in Australian dollars, it's $1.30 or $1.40.
Do they not understand what a convenience store is?
Yeah, it's weird. They don't even
Next, you'll be telling me that they have prices on things.
They do. They have prices on things. And I thought it was called 7-Eleven because it's worth 7 and you pay 11.
Yeah, yeah.
But their 7-Elevens are just as cheap as everything else.
Wow,
and they actually also have food that's
Right.
nice. I know. They have food that's
Food
nice.
that's nice.
Yeah, and you can go and get basically what you need for a meal. Like if you're living by yourself, like I used to be.
So they're like mini supermarkets.
Yeah, that's right. If you let's say you're a sad person living by yourself like I used to be and you just want to get some food on the way home with no effort.
Yes.
You go into a convenience store, pay $5 for a perfectly decent meal you can microwave or whatever, and you're done. And that's genuinely convenient.
Look, I don't think what you're describing is the future, Dom. I think you're just describing something that will never happen here. Like, can you imagine city convenience store or night owl?
Well, that's true. I wouldn't want to eat food from any Australian convenience store.
Yeah. You would just, like, it's never going to happen.
I mean, Australian convenience stores are convenient, but only for stone people. They're basically every single food item in a convenience store.
Rich stone people
who can afford to pay $10 for a pack of twisties.
Yes.
That's another thing you notice. But then the counterpart to this is, let's say you want a drink. You want like a can of drink or a can of hot coffee.
Oh, yeah.
They have cans of hot coffee,
yes.
There are also vending machines everywhere. So if you can't find a convenience store, there's on every street in Tokyo pretty much, there's vending machines just randomly put al fresco outdoors selling equally cheap drinks.
What if you're wanting used women's underwear, though?
I've heard this story, but in all my trips to Japan, I've never seen
that's
such a
myth,
machine.
is it? Yeah.
There must be one somewhere.
Because don't you get worried that, you're buying a drink and that the last thing to be vended from it was some used underwear?
I mean, that would be awkward.
Yeah.
Because I'm thinking they're quite different markets.
Yeah, exactly.
But it certainly drinks. But there are lots of other weird little. You can get cake in a can at vending machines in Tokyo.
How? Like
An aluminium can with cake in it. Oh, we didn't manage to track one down. We wanted to try it. But,
right.
Next trip.
None of the medical advice contained in the Chaser Report should legally be considered medical advice. The Chaser Report.
So another thing they have, Charles, you're not going to believe this. They have trains that work, that actually run on time. So when
Sorry, you've lost me there.
so
Sorry.
you know how you look on Google Maps or something, and it says a train will arrive at the station at whatever the time is.
Yeah, and
11:35,
and that's the one time that it will never arrive. Yeah.
No, in Japan they turn up at the exact moment.
Right.
And if you just miss it, it's fine because there's another one in 3 or 4 minutes.
Sorry, I'm just having trouble. So you're doing trains.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. They actually,
That
you
turn
go to a
up.
station and there's a train there that goes where you need to go and it gets there quickly.
Okay.
It's a weird idea, isn't it?
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
I mean, I must say, the culture shock was great. I was put off by their foreign ways.
Are you sure you didn't go to Disneyland or something like that? Like,
Well, you can get a train to Disneyland in Tokyo. There's a special train with Mickey Mouse ears. They've thought of everything. But then, Charles, they also have, and this is the most improbable one, they have fast trains that are actually fast. You know how in Australia you'll go from, say, Sydney to Newcastle or Sydney to Canberra and it'll take somehow on a private piece of track with nothing in the way, it will take longer than going by car.
Yes.
I don't know how that's possible in Australia. But in Japan, they have the Shinkansen, the bullet train, which travels at, 250 to 300 kilometers per hour and goes very, very fast. The really weird thing is that even though the country is absolutely earthquake prone, there's never been a problem because they have automatic detection built into the trains, and whenever they detect tremors, they just shut down automatically.
Right. So hang on. They built a whole lot of train networks, and then they thought about contingencies like, what if something happens, and then designed into the design a solution to those.
They did. It's a very strange idea.
But they must be closed for track work all the time.
Well, that's what I was going to say. Yeah. On the weekends, I don't know when they do their track work because The Australian way is to just do it every single weekend forever.
Just shut down everything all the time.
I lived in, for those who don't know Sydney, I lived on the north side of the bridge when I was a kid, and that meant that every single weekend there were no trains or buses.
Yeah.
Buses replaced trains on the North Shore line.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a recording that they played. No, they don't seem to do that. Or if they do, it's late at night. Yeah, it's strange, isn't it? So that's what they have. But the other thing is, Charles, I was there. I stayed there for a week. One morning at 4:15 a.m., my phone did this.
Right.
They have built into all of our phones, like every Australian phone presumably on the market,
Yes.
an automatic feature that warns you of an emergency.
Earthquake. Oh,
And
wow.
so I mean, obviously that was truly terrifying and woke us up.
Yes.
And the ground did shake a bit, and it's genuinely dangerous to visit Tokyo because they're overdue for a massive earthquake that will kill tens of thousands of people. But
Yeah. Oh, the tourism board doesn't want you to mention that.
look, it makes it more exciting. I feel. But all of our phones have this feature to warn us of emergencies.
Wow.
And it makes that sound whether it's in silent. I think even if it's switched off in some scenarios, or there are televisions when they're switched off, they turn on to do that, and they can immediately notify everybody of an emergency.
Wow.
Whereas in Australia,
Yes.
this function is built into all of our phones.
But-
We don't use it.
Well, no, but that would don't tell the authorities about that, because what they'll do is they'll use it to tell you about, the latest horse race or something like that. They'll use it for the Everest.
Well, on election day, they would have gone,
Oh, yeah.
do it. Boat people. Boat people.
Refugees.
Yes, that's right. But what an amazing function. And they've designed this system to work, and it's instantaneous. As soon as it detects any sort of seismic trouble,
Yes.
it just sends this thing out to the affected area. Fortunately, in Australia, we don't have any natural disasters. We don't need any kind of early warning system.
That's right.
Anyway, so that's another thing I loved about it. What else can I tell you? Oh, Charles, this is a really good thing.
Oh, yeah.
You know how the cost of living is horrible at the moment. Everything's really expensive.
Yes, of course.
Every single restaurant that we went to in Japan has a lunch special that's like $10, $11, $12. You get a lunch and a side, a drink. It's
What? So wait, hang on. Why do we live here? Why don't we just all move to Japan?
because of the earthquakes, I guess. But no, it's genuinely amazing, and
But you'll get warned about the earthquakes. It's fine.
it's fine. It's
Yeah.
fine.
At least you know that you're about to die.
Which is
Japan.
helpful,
Yeah.
and at least that there are working trains.
Yeah.
So that if you die on a train in Japan in an earthquake, at least you'll know
Yeah.
that it was going quickly.
And that it was on time.
Yes, that's right. But the best thing, I think, in the whole of Japan, there are many things I love.
Do they have the Toto toilets on the trains?
I don't know.
Because you could
Probably.
literally, if you're on a train during an earthquake, it would be like this: eating something from a convenience store, like cake in a can.
Great way to go, wouldn't it? But there are a lot of other things I love about Japan. There's little jazz bars everywhere. There's sumo, which is a great sport. I mean, it's the only sport fat people can play. And as a tubby person myself, I really endorse that. But the best thing and the biggest difference that you notice, I reckon, in Japan is happy drunks.
Oh,
Yeah, because
right,
it's a very hard drinking culture, right? You can buy booze.
Oh, really?
You can buy a can of beer from a convenience store for the same cost as a Coke for less than $2.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, they're incredibly cheap to get.
Biru.
Biru, yeah, exactly.
Biru.
You can go, and there's stronger things than that as well. There's shochu mixes and all these spirit mixes that are very potent.
Right.
It's very easy to get absolutely smashed on very little money in Japan. But for some reason, unlike Australia, everyone, particularly the blokes being drunk, doesn't lead to mass violence. I don't know how it happens. I don't know why it happens. But people will fall asleep on the street waiting for the first train. It's very common. You walk around at 2 a.m. and you see lots of businessmen just sleeping on the floor, completely safe. They don't punch on.
Wow.
And you know what that means?
What does that mean?
Any Australian who moves there is going to be the king.
That's go around and bash everyone.
Yeah, it's great. Awesome.
Do you think that maybe they're not that when they get drunk, they're not angry because they live in Japan and the trains run on time and you can get cheap lunches and cheap food and cheap cake in a tin?
Well, it's either
And
that
so-
or the massive cultural conformity, which is sort of a known issue in Japanese society. It's not perfect.
Yeah, but we've got national cultural conformity around being a dick.
We do, and drinking more,
Yeah, yeah.
and getting a punch on.
Yeah.
There you go. So look, it's a great place. We should all go there and possibly not come back. In fact, my life would be so much more affordable if I lived in Tokyo because you know what else is cheaper? Property.
What? Really?
Well, it's much smaller,
yeah.
but you can at least afford to live there.
Okay. Well,
You can always visit if you can get a Qantas sale. That's what I did.
yeah, I think are there any trains that go there?
Give them time. They'll figure it out.
Our gear is from Road. We're part of the Iconoclast Network. Catch you tomorrow, unless we decide to move to Japan.